Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something pretty meaty, the fields of strategic management.
Oh, exciting.
You sent us a syllabus from a PhD-level seminar on strategic theory,
Okay.
and it looks like a real gold mine. A lot of influential research here. I'm really excited to see what we uncover.
It's a fantastic selection.
Yeah.
A lot of articles in here that really chart, kind of the evolution of strategic thinking.
I'm excited.
It'll be fun to kind of trace how ideas developed over time.
Yeah, so it looks like the syllabus starts us off with business policy at Harvard back in 1912. That seems like ancient history in the business world. I mean, where did they even begin back then?
Well, it was a very practical approach, Back then, you
Yeah.
can imagine, like, senior professors and industry veterans would gather with students to tackle real-world business problems.
Yeah.
It was all about applying experience to current challenges.
That's so different from how we even think about strategy today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Was there like a turning point where things kind of shifted towards a more, I don't know, like academic approach?
Yeah, I think the 1970s saw a real push for strategic management to become, what they called a normal science,
Oh.
which might sound a bit jargony.
Yeah.
But what it really means is researchers wanted to kind of go beyond, just case studies and develop a more rigorous, data-driven approach to understanding competitive advantage.
Oh, okay. So moving away from opinions and gut feelings towards a more like evidence-based approach.
Exactly. And as the field, became more research-oriented,
Yeah.
three key areas of focus really emerged.
Okay.
Competition within industries.
Okay.
What makes management successful or not?
Right.
And how companies grow. These are still themes that, still dominate strategic management today.
That gives us some really great context, I think.
Yeah.
So the syllabus then really dives into what's called the resource-based view,
Yes.
or RBV,
Yeah.
as like a core theory in strategic management. What is the essence of this view?
So RBV really shifts the focus inward.
Yeah.
It argues that a company's unique resources and capabilities, what they have and what they do well, are the real sources of lasting competitive advantage.
So it's not just about being in the right industry at the right time.
Right.
It's about what you bring to the table.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You think of companies like Apple, renowned for their design and innovation,
Yeah.
or Amazon, with their logistical mastery and customer focus.
Oh.
These aren't things you can easily replicate.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what makes them special.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works.
Good. So how did this idea of RBV even come about? Like, who were some of the key figures who really developed this theory?
Well, early work, you can kind of trace it back to scholars like Birger Wernerfeld in the mid-1980s.
Right.
He emphasized the importance of looking at a firm's resources as an interconnected system,
Yeah.
not just isolated assets.
Oh, and then, in the late 80s, researchers like Dirks and Kuhl highlighted how strategically building up specific assets over time could lead to kind of a sustainable edge over competitors.
Makes sense. It's like building a great,
Yeah.
sports team. Like,
Yes.
it's not enough to have just one star player.
Exactly.
You need talent across,
Across the board.
different positions working together.
That's a great analogy.
And of course, like Jay Barney's work in 1991
Right.
really kind of put this RBV on the map, right?
Yeah.
He gave us the Viren framework.
Yes.
Valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable, right?
Yes, that's it.
For a resource to give you a lasting advantage.
That's the one.
Ah, yes, Viren framework. Coming back to me now. Great.
Good.
But how did other scholars react to this, fairly new theory? I mean, was it instantly accepted? Or was there some pushback?
There were definitely some heated debates.
Oh, really?
Especially with scholars in the field of industrial organization economics who argued that RBV was, just repackaging old ideas.
Oh, so like a classic academic new theory versus old guard kind of thing.
Exactly. But, these debates actually helped refine RBV.
Oh, interesting.
Think of it like a blacksmith hammering away at a piece of metal,
Okay.
shaping it, strengthening it.
So the theory had to kind of stand up to the scrutiny,
Right.
which ultimately made it more robust.
Exactly.
I like that analogy.
Good.
So where did things go from there? The syllabus mentions the knowledge-based view, or KBV,
Yes.
as kind of an extension of this RBV.
Yeah.
So what is that all about?
So KBV takes the idea of, unique resources a step further
Okay.
and really puts knowledge front and center. It argues that the knowledge a company possesses is the most crucial resource for competitive advantage.
So not just like the physical assets or even, the processes, but really like the collective knowledge within the organization.
Right. Precisely. Think about companies like Google or, big pharmaceutical giants.
Yeah.
Their success is largely due to the sheer volume of knowledge they have and their ability to use it effectively.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
So how did this KBV kind of develop from, this foundation laid by RBV? Like, who are some of the big thinkers in this area?
Well, a key figure here is Ikujiro Nonaka in the early 90s.
Yeah.
He developed a really fascinating theory about how organizations actually create knowledge. He highlighted this constant interplay between what he called tacit knowledge, things we know but struggle to explain, and explicit knowledge, things we can kind of codify and share.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right.
Like a lot of company know-how, it just lives in people's heads, right?
Exactly. And building on that idea, Robert Grant's work in the mid-90s was crucial.
Okay.
He argued that, companies need to be able to integrate these different types of knowledge, especially when, the business environment is constantly changing, like it is today.
That's a lot of information to process.
Yeah.
But it's all starting to connect, I think, in a really fascinating way.
Good. I'm glad.
But how does a company actually put these ideas into action, right?
Right.
How do they pinpoint what their core competencies are?
That's the question.
And use their knowledge effectively.
That's where the concept of core competencies and complementary assets comes into play.
Okay.
It's a crucial link between kind of that theory and practical application.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll dive into that.
Sounds good.
Okay. Core competencies and complementary assets. Those sound like terms you'd hear at a business school lecture.
Right.
What do they really mean?
Well, the idea of core competencies really builds on, what we were just talking about with RBV and KBV.
Yeah.
It's about, pinpointing those fundamental strengths that are deeply rooted in a company's resources and knowledge that truly differentiate them in the marketplace.
So it's like figuring out the secret sauce that gives a company, like a real edge over the competition.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about, what you excel at today. It's about identifying those capabilities that'll, keep you relevant as the business world evolves.
Well, the business world changes so rapidly. I mean,
yes, it does.
I imagine identifying those like future-proof competencies is a tough challenge.
It is, and that's where David Teese's work on complementary assets comes in.
Okay.
He argued that, simply having core competencies isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
You need the right complementary assets to fully leverage those strengths.
Okay, complementary assets. What exactly are we talking about here? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine a company develops a groundbreaking new technology, right?
Yeah.
That's their core competency.
Wow.
But to really profit from it, they might need things like, manufacturing capabilities, distribution channels, or even like a killer marketing team.
Right.
These are the complementary assets that help them, bring their innovation to market successfully.
So it's about having all the pieces of the puzzle to turn, a great idea into a successful product or service. I mean,
that's it.
A company can be brilliant, but without like the right support structure, they might stumble.
Exactly. This is crucial when it comes to, profiting from innovation.
Right.
A company might have a, cutting edge R&D department.
Yeah.
But if they lack those complementary assets, they might struggle to commercialize their ideas and get a return on their investment.
Yeah, I see the potential pitfalls here. Yeah. Like if a company becomes too fixated on their existing core competencies, could that actually, I don't know, like turn into a weakness?
You're right to raise that point.
Yeah.
There's a concept called core rigidities, a term coined by Dorothy Leonard Barton, which describes this very problem. Sometimes the things that made a company successful can become obstacles when, the market changes.
Right. It's like, being stuck in a rut,
Yeah.
Like doing things the way they've always been done, even though, the world around them is shifting.
Exactly.
Can you give us some real-world examples of this happening?
Oh, there are plenty.
Okay.
A classic example is the typesetter industry.
Oh, okay.
Companies that excelled at producing, traditional typesetting equipment
Yeah.
really struggled to adapt.
Right.
When digital printing came along.
Right.
They were so focused on, their old expertise
Right.
that they missed the boat on the future of the industry.
It's a cautionary tale.
It is.
Any other examples kind of illustrate this danger of core rigidities?
Well, Afua's research looked at how, established companies react to technological change.
Okay.
He found that companies that were overly reliant
On their existing capabilities.
Yeah.
Often had trouble, keeping pace with newer, more nimble competitors.
Right. It's like the story of, like the nimble startup
Yeah.
disrupting the slow-moving giant. It happens all the time.
All the time.
And Rothermel and Hill, their research found that a company's ability to, adapt and reconfigure its resources,
Yes.
especially in the face of like disruptive technology, was a major factor
Absolutely.
in whether they, succeeded or failed.
Makes sense.
Those who clung too tightly to the past often faltered.
Yep.
So it sounds like there's a real tension,
Yeah.
between like honing your core competencies, right?
Right.
And knowing when to adapt and evolve.
It's a tough balance.
So how do companies kind of strike this balance?
Right.
How do they build in the capacity for change?
That is the question.
The syllabus points to dynamic capabilities
Oh, yeah.
as a key concept here.
They're essential.
Okay, so tell me about them. So dynamic capabilities are, they're essential in today's business environment.
Right.
It's about more than just having resources. It's about being able to, sense changes in the market,
Okay.
seize opportunities,
Okay.
and then, reconfigure your resources to meet new challenges.
Ugh.
It's about agility and continuous learning.
So it's not enough to just have a talented team.
Right.
You need a team that can, adapt their game plan on the fly.
Exactly. Back in 1992,
Yeah.
Kogan and Zander highlighted the importance of what they called combinative capabilities.
Yeah.
It's the ability to, mix and match your resources in new and creative ways to respond to, changing circumstances.
Okay.
Companies with strong dynamic capabilities are masters of this.
That makes sense.
Right.
So it sounds like they're constantly, evaluating their strengths and weaknesses and, kind of adjusting their approach as needed.
Yeah.
What other research has helped us to understand, how to develop these dynamic capabilities?
Well, Teese, Pisano, and Schwinn, they published a landmark paper in 1997 that really broke down this, this process of sensing, seizing, and reconfiguring resources. It's considered foundational in the study of dynamic capabilities.
Yeah, we've been throwing around a lot of,
A lot of jargon.
academic terms.
Yeah.
Are there different, schools of thought,
Yeah.
different perspectives on, how to define and cultivate these dynamic capabilities?
Definitely. For example, Eisenhart and Martin,
Okay.
they approached it from a more kind of process-oriented view,
Okay.
focusing on how companies actually, make decisions and adapt. Zollo and Winter, on the other hand,
Yeah.
they emphasize the role of, learning and experience in developing dynamic capabilities.
So different approaches,
Yeah.
but all kind of pointing to the same, core idea
Right.
that adaptability is essential for long-term success in a constantly changing world.
You got it.
And this takes us to another key theme in the syllabus, which is organizational learning.
Yes.
So how does that fit into, this bigger picture?
Well, organizational learning is really the kind of the engine that drives the development of dynamic capabilities.
Okay.
It's about constantly gathering new knowledge, experimenting, and refining strategies based on what you learn.
So it's like a continuous feedback loop.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Try things out, learn from the results, adjust, and then try again.
That's how you get better.
Always getting smarter
Right.
and more adaptable.
Right.
And there's a fascinating tension here that James March called the exploration exploitation dilemma.
Oh, yeah.
Exploration versus exploitation. Tell me more.
It's about finding that sweet spot
Okay.
between exploring new ideas, new products, markets, technologies, and exploiting what you already know and do well, maximizing efficiency.
Right. I can see that it's like choosing between,
Yeah.
sticking with your tried and true recipes in the kitchen
Uh-huh.
versus experimenting with new culinary creations.
I like it.
You want to offer your signature dishes, but you also want to,
Keep it fresh.
keep things fresh and exciting.
Exactly. And just as, a chef needs to know which ingredients to use and how to combine them,
Yeah.
organizations need to develop what Cohen and Leventhal called their absorptive capacity.
Okay. Now, there's another new term, absorptive capacity. What does that mean?
So absorptive capacity is the ability to, recognize valuable new knowledge, integrate it into the organization, and apply it effectively. It's the ability to, to learn and adapt, both from your successes and your failures.
This is all starting to, make sense. It's fascinating to see how, all these concepts from RBV and KBV to dynamic capabilities and organizational learning, how they're all interconnected.
It all ties together.
But, business is rarely a solo endeavor, right?
Yeah.
The syllabus also touches on strategic alliances and networks.
Yes.
What's the significance of collaboration in strategic management?
Well, I think collaboration is, it's more crucial than ever in today's, complex and interconnected business world.
Yeah.
Strategic alliances and networks allow companies to, access knowledge, resources, and markets they might not have on their own.
So it's not just about competition. It's also about finding the right partners to innovate and grow.
Absolutely. Think about the tech industry, where companies are constantly forming partnerships, sharing technologies, and even investing in each other's ventures.
Right.
It's a very dynamic, web of cooperation and competition.
It's almost like, companies are recognizing that they can achieve more by working together, even if they're also competing in other areas.
That's right. And understanding the, the dynamics within these alliances is key.
Yeah.
Research by Gerwali and Madhavan really emphasizes that these relationships are fluid.
Okay.
They evolve, they have their own kind of internal tensions, and managing those complexities is crucial for success.
So it's about, finding ways to cooperate effectively, even within, a competitive landscape.
Absolutely.
Are there other, frameworks that can help us understand, the nuances of these, collaborative relationships?
The concept of structural holes, developed by Zahir and Bell, is...
Structural holes, I'm not sure I follow.
It's insightful.
What are those exactly?
So imagine a network as a web of connections, right?
Okay.
A structural hole is like a gap between two clusters in that network.
Right.
A company that can, bridge that gap, connecting those different clusters gains a unique advantage.
It's like being the missing link, right?
Yeah.
The one who can kind of facilitate communication and exchange between, groups that wouldn't normally interact.
Exactly. And that ability to connect, disparate parts of a network can be a powerful source of competitive advantage. It allows you to tap into information, resources, and opportunities that others miss.
This is all incredibly insightful. But let's be real.
Yeah.
The business world isn't always about, smooth collaboration and gradual evolution.
Yeah.
Things can change, dramatically and unexpectedly.
And for sure.
The syllabus also mentions technological discontinuities and their impact on, entire industries.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So what's all that about?
Right. That's where we start talking about disruptive innovation, a concept popularized by Clayton Christensen. It describes how new technologies or business models can completely, shake up an industry, often catching, established players off guard.
It brings to mind, the classic example of Blockbuster versus Netflix.
Oh, yeah. Perfect example.
Perfect illustration of how,
textbook
disruptive innovation can just reshape an entire market.
Totally.
And Anderson and Tushman developed a model of technological change that views it as a cyclical process, right?
Right.
You see periods of, incremental innovation. Punctuated by these major disruptions.
Right. It's not a straight line.
These discontinuities, create both enormous challenges and, exciting opportunities.
For sure.
So it's like riding a wave, you might enjoy a period of, relative calm.
Right.
And then suddenly you're hit by this, massive swell.
You got to adapt.
That forces you to adapt or risk being wiped out.
Great analogy. And it's often, entrepreneurs who are best positioned to kind of ride these waves of disruption.
To see the potential in the midst of, the chaos.
Yeah, they're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
They're the surfers.
Yes.
You can ride the biggest waves, right?
Right.
And they often, kind of become the next generation of industry leaders.
It's true.
But even established companies can navigate these disruptions.
They can.
If they embrace, kind of the principles we've been discussing.
That's the key.
Agility, adaptability, and, this commitment to continuous learning.
Those are the ingredients.
This has been an incredible, overview of so many key concepts in strategic management. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From, the fundamental ideas of RBV and KBV to, the more dynamic capabilities needed to, adapt and thrive in a world of constant change.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've gotten, a crash course in strategic management.
You're a quick...
But I have a feeling there's more to explore, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are some of the, emerging themes and future directions in strategic management?
Yep.
I'm sure, scholars aren't resting on their laurels.
Well, you're busy.
After all this, groundbreaking research.
Yeah, there are some really cool new areas of research emerging.
Yeah.
But I think those are best explored in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, perfect. Well, let's take another quick break and we'll come back and we'll do just that.
That sounds great.
All right, let's dive into those emerging themes that you mentioned.
Okay.
What's really capturing the attention of, strategic management thinkers these days?
Well, one of the most intriguing areas is this concept of organizational ambidexterity.
Organizational ambidexterity. It's a mouthful. What is that all about?
It refers to a company's ability to, to balance two things that seem to be at odds with each other.
Okay.
Exploration and exploitation. So exploration is about, venturing into the unknown, experimenting, innovating.
Yeah.
Exploitation is about leveraging what you already know and do well.
Right.
Maximizing efficiency.
So it's that, exploration, exploitation dilemma we talked about earlier, but on an organizational level.
Exactly. But organizational ambidexterity, it takes it a step further, you know? It's not just about finding a balance. It's about being able to do both effectively at the same time.
That sounds incredibly challenging.
It is.
How can a company be both innovative and efficient simultaneously? I mean, those often seem like kind of,
they do,
like opposing forces.
Yeah, but research suggests that companies that can pull it off, have a significant advantage. I mean, think of Google, masters of their core search business, right?
Right.
That's exploitation.
Okay.
But they're also constantly experimenting with new technologies and ventures, like self-driving cars.
Right.
And artificial intelligence. That's exploration.
Yeah. Google's a great example. They've got their fingers in so many pies. Yeah. And yet they still dominate their original market.
Exactly. And, research by Gupta, Smith, and Shalley has, really delved into how organizations kind of manage this interplay between exploration and exploitation. Right. It's about creating the right structures, processes, and culture that allow both to thrive.
So it's not just about having a brilliant CEO who can just magically juggle everything. Yeah. It's about building an organization that's designed for this ambidexterity.
From the ground up.
From the ground up.
Oh, yeah.
And research by Raish, Birkinshaw, Probst, and Tushman has explored different, organizational designs that support this ambidexterity. So,
for example, some companies create separate units dedicated to, exploration and exploitation, while others encourage individuals to be more ambidextrous in their own work.
This makes me think about how individuals can apply these principles.
Oh, for sure.
To their own, careers.
Absolutely.
We probably all need to be, exploring new skills and opportunities. Yeah. While also, exploiting our existing strengths.
That's a great point.
That's something I'm definitely going to ponder.
Good.
Now, before we wrap up,
the
syllabus mentions one more topic that caught my eye, which is transaction cost economics.
Right.
How does that fit into this broader landscape of strategic management?
So transaction cost economics, or TCE, it provides a framework for understanding, why firms exist and how they decide which activities to keep in-house versus outsourcing to the market. Right. It's all about minimizing the costs associated with with making those decisions.
So it's like a very, like economic, almost like mathematical way of looking at strategy.
In some ways, yes.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that TCE, like any theory, has its limitations.
Right.
There's an ongoing debate about its, applicability in the real world, as highlighted by the research of David and Han.
So it's not like a perfect model, but it offers, like some valuable insights.
It does.
Into how companies, make decisions about, their boundaries, determining like what they do themselves versus,
versus what they partner with others for.
They partner with others for, exactly.
And it ultimately, reminds us that strategic management is about making choices.
Right.
Choices about resources, capabilities, partnerships, and how to navigate a complex and an ever-changing world.
Yeah. This has been an incredible journey. We've explored, the evolution of strategic management, starting from its humble beginnings in business policy to the, dynamic, knowledge-driven field it is today.
We've covered a lot.
We've covered so much ground. RBV, KBV, core competencies, dynamic capabilities, organizational learning, strategic alliances, even touched on, some of those emerging themes like,
that's a lot.
Organizational ambidexterity and the, ongoing debate around transaction cost economics.
It's a lot to think about.
I feel like I've gotten a master class.
Well, you've been a great student.
In strategic management, so thank you for that.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You have a real knack, I think, for taking, even the most complex theories.
Oh, thanks.
And making them understandable and engaging. And I especially appreciated, how you connected these ideas to, like, practical applications.
Oh, good.
Both for companies and, and for individuals.
Well, I think that's what makes it, really relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of strategic management. We hope you found it as insightful and thought-provoking as we did.
Yes, thank you for listening.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.